This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by the Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzo. I am going to give you another intro today. I'm going to say, hola amigos, ¿cómo está? And that is directed towards the commander, who is Janelle Fosquet, who is the editor-in-chief of Fire Rescue One, who is also with me always on this podcast. ¿Qué pasa, Janelle?
Très bien, merci et vous? Oh, wait. Wrong language.
Yep, that's French. If you... For those listening, you're like, why are they speaking Spanish? It's because we have a very special guest today. We have Dr. Danny Evans here, who is got an unbelievable YouTube channel. It's called The Language Tutor. And I had a scenario that we had some Spanish-speaking individuals, and I really couldn't communicate with them very well. I went on the internet, and up pops Dr. Danny's YouTube page, and he just went through, it's about a 30-minute tutorial, and I thought this is a perfect person for the podcast. So welcome, Dr. Danny. Thanks so much for being here, man. ¿Qué pasa?
Hola, nada. Muy bien, ¿y usted?
Sí. I guess I should have said ¿cómo está?, correct?
Yeah, that works too.
Okay.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué tal? Whatever.
And so for our listening audience, give us a little background. You are you're a school teacher. You got this unbelievable website or YouTube page with quite a few followers. You got about 300,000 people that follow you, and you do these great tutorials, and you're taking your time up to be with us. So first of all, thank you. And second of all, what got you started in doing all this?
Well, I'm a language nerd. I've always loved language. When I started college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and originally thought, hey, I want to be a band director because I'm a big music guy. But then I realized, I love music, but I'm not sure I want to teach. I really want to teach language. And so as I was starting college, I thought to myself, hey, I already knew a lot of French, had spent time in France, knew some Dutch. And I thought, hey, I'll pick up Spanish, pick up another language, make myself more marketable. And it got me a job before I even finished student teaching. So now I'm in my 27th year of teaching. And back in 2019, someone contacted me, and I had been doing a TV show in Atlanta teaching Spanish, and they had started putting my videos on their YouTube channel. And somebody said, hey, you're on YouTube. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, this video's got 1 million views. And I said, you're crazy. And so I looked, I couldn't believe it. And I thought, they only put a certain number on there. So why don't I start my own channel and offer in an unlimited number of videos and lessons for free. And so we started in January of 2019, and here we are.
Yeah, I was doing some background. I think you had almost total, like through all your videos, almost 17 million views. The one that I saw is 40,000, and it's super helpful. And it's a very helpless feeling going back to kind of the motivation for me to search. It's you have someone there that needs your help, and you can't communicate with them. So I know in your video you had some really great things, and we're going to lead a link to that, right, Janelle, to that video so people can get more information. And today we're going to go through some statements. We'll go through some things to give people a nice base to learn. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we also want to do is go through a quick scenario. So I'm gonna trade hats with you if you don't mind. You're gonna be the firefighter, and you're getting off the truck, and you see there's a residence there. There's some fire, kind of in a window, and there's the Spanish-speaking residents are standing in front. Just a couple of questions, from a fire lieutenant standpoint. I'm going to try to figure out, where is the fire? Mm-hmm. Is everyone out? Yeah. Is everyone okay? Are there any pets? Again, maybe reiterate and ask in a different way if there is anyone else that could be in the house, and possibly like, what's the best way to get there? Mm-hmm. So let's turn it over to you. And how does that sound in Spanish?
Okay, so I arrived, and first thing I say, ¿Dónde está el fuego? Where's the fire? And están todas fuera de la casa. Is everybody out? And hay mascotas en la casa. Are there any pets in the house? And how do I arrive at it? The fire. ¿Cómo llego a él?
Perfect. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit because there's different ways to ask questions in
Yeah.
Spanish, and
Yes.
and like we had talked off camera, which I always do, about where do you even begin? Like, so in
Mhm.
this case, we have a scenario so we can at least figure out verbiage a little bit as far as like nouns and the vocabulary side.
Yes.
But as far as formalities, right? There's a
Mhm.
formal, there's an informal. I mean,
Yeah.
what would you recommend, and where do we even begin?
Well, for the purpose of firefighting and just immediately meeting people's needs, I suggest that you just use very simple phrases. I wouldn't get too much into, is this the formal? Is this the informal? Just go with the informal. I believe you should go with informal because you want to be on a personal level with these people that you're dealing with. And so most of the phrases that we'll cover today are in that informal way of speaking. We will throw in one or two that demonstrate the respectful side, but the biggest thing is to get on a personal level with those people. And if you're just starting out, I completely recommend that what you want to do is take some of these phrases, memorize them. Yes, go ahead and put them in your brain, get them in the bank, but also understand that memorization is really lower level brain functioning. What we want to do to really obtain the language is kick in the higher level language skills, the higher level thinking. And that is where you get that by actually speaking the language and putting yourself into that situation. So if I personally were a firefighter and I were just starting out, I'd get these phrases. But while I'm in the fire station, I'm not on a call, I would be walking through scenarios at least periodically. I'm going to be the firefighter. You're going to be the person in need, and try to go through these phrases, or have someone give you a conversation. This is what you need to say right now. And that person needs to come up with that phrase, because making yourself use it in actual situations, that's going to cause your brain to retain it in a way that is long lasting and not just that temporary mode that we get from just memorizing the phrases. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So is that the full immersion element of this? It's like,
Yes.
I know that I've studied French quite a bit and
Yeah.
I've never gotten it to quite click in my brain. And I think that's
Mhm.
because I was just taking the memorization route,
Right.
trying to pass the exam or whatever it might be. But really, um, unless I'm speaking it regularly,
Mhm.
I feel like it just atrophies so quickly.
It does.
Um,
Yeah. And I will say this: when I was 16, I'd had 1 year of French one, and I ended up living in France that summer after 10th grade for about a month. And I went in there all big attitude. And I remember looking at the family where I was staying. I remember looking at the parents and saying to them in French, ne parle anglais pas, ne parle pas anglais avec moi. Don't speak English with me. Je veux pratiquer le français tout l'été. I want to practice French every day while I'm here. And the dad looked at me and he said, that's not a problem with me. He said, je ne sais rien en anglais. I know nothing. And he said, nul, nothing. So then I realized I didn't even have a crutch. Like, I can't even ask this guy, oh, I don't know how to say this word in French. How do you say it? I couldn't even ask him that because he wouldn't know the English word I'm saying to begin with.
Right.
So I
Right.
realized
Yeah.
I have no crutch whatsoever. So I got my wish. I had to speak it every single day. And it did wonders, absolute wonders for me. It's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think especially for what we're going to cover today, this is again just the foundation, and
Yeah.
then it's great to then say, okay, hey, for a quick 5 or 10 minute drill with your crews in the firehouse,
Mhm.
just go through a couple of these statements, like you were saying, so you can at least understand the gist of them and give some form of understanding and get some form of understanding. Because then you also remember these are stressful situations that we're going into. So you're
Mhm.
trying to retain something that's new, and if you don't practice or rehearse or kind of immerse yourself every
Yeah.
once in a while, you could really not, say the wrong stuff or just freeze up in some cases. I know you got a video on that as well about freezing up.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I love the fact. So what we're talking about today is just the base,
Hmm.
continually learn and develop and do some quick trainings with these, as a team or as a group, where your partner, wherever it may be. And
Yeah.
the more you do that, just a couple minutes every once in a while really goes a long way. So,
Yeah.
And
I,
we'll show a slideshow for people who want to watch this. Some people certainly learn in different ways.
mhm.
I learn best reading things as opposed to hearing them. So we've got in the video version, we'll have some slides showing keywords, directives, questions. So if you learn better that way, I suggest you pop over to the YouTube version. And if you're not watching that now, so we'll show some of those. I do have a question though, before
Mhm.
we go too much further about the formal and informal.
Yeah.
In Spanish, what does that look like? What are the differences? Is it like a significant difference in phrasing, or is it just like the difference of a few words, or I'm sorry, letters?
It's differences in small words. So, for example, if I were going to ask you, "What is your name?" and I were speaking to somebody that's my age or younger, a child, I could say, "¿Cómo te llamas?" And so that the word "te" is implying someone, as I've just described, younger, your age, a peer. The formal is where, if you can imagine, I'm speaking to somebody that in English I would use ma'am or sir with. So it's just adding a little bit more respect. So instead of saying "Cómo te llamas?" I could say "Cómo se llama?" And the verb llama instead of llamas, and the word se instead of te makes it respectful.
Got it.
yo me llamo Erron.
Sí,
Sí,
muy bien.
3 años en la clase de español. Sí.
Excelente.
And I still can't communicate. So darn it, that's why we're here today.
That's all right.
Um,
I do want to give a disclaimer though. This is important because if you're watching and listening to this or watching this and you're starting to learn, chances are you know somebody that speaks Spanish. And a lot of times we're going to have people come up and say, "Well, yeah, but I would say it like this." Or I would say it like this. But if you think about it, in English, pick any phrase or sentence. Could we not think of 3 or 4 different ways to say it?
yeah.
Right.
So what we're doing today is we're presenting that foundation of phrases, very intro. And once you become better and more, proficient, then you can add new ways in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good point.
we set up the fire scenario,
Mhm.
and I think a majority of the time where we really need, the Spanish speaking and the communication is more when it's an EMS or more of an emergent like car accident or somewhere where someone is hurt or injured.
Mhm.
So we'll go through that scenario also, and just backing up about the fire scenario, we'll try to do some summary as far as like what those questions are. But typically that is a very urgent. There's not a lot of contact with individuals there. It's like we were saying, it's 3 or 4 questions.
Mhm.
Try to get some idea of what the communication is there, and then we're going to action.
Yeah.
Now, when we have an EMS side, let's do a little role play there where the individual has chest pain, or if it's a
Mhm.
trauma, they're bleeding somewhere. What are some basic questions there? You're looking at where's the pain? Has this
Mhm.
happened before? How did this happen? I'll give it over to you. Here's the helmet again, and now how would you start that conversation?
Yeah. So where does it hurt? Um, you could say "Donde te duele?" "Donde te duele?" And I know chest pain is a very important thing for first responders to know about. So "Tiene dolor de pecho?" You have pain of chest. Yeah.
Chest.
So that's a good one. Have you had this pain before? ¿Has tenido este dolor antes? So those are some good phrases that'll get you started trying to find out what's going on.
Okay.
Mhm.
So when you come up, and then obviously then let's we'll even back up. Now, if you have someone in the ambulance and it's a little calmer,
Hmm.
you know, start with, right, like introduce yourself,
Hmm.
that, and then and say, "Hey, I'm here to help." Obviously,
Okay.
they may know that, but is it better just to kind of reiterate these things that even though you think they may,
Hmm.
it's obvious. Sometimes it's nice to start that communication. Does that
Yes,
make sense?
absolutely. Yeah, establishing a rapport, calming the person down, I'm sure is extremely. I'm not a first responder, but I'm sure that's helpful. So yeah, just hello. You can say hola is the most simple way to say that. Just hola, and my name is. Mi nombre es. And again, you can say me llamo, but let's learn one, get proficient, and build another one later. So
Okay.
mi nombre es. And then what is your name? ¿Cuál es tu nombre? ¿Cuál es tu nombre? And if you want to tell somebody, I'm here to help, estoy aquí para ayudar.
Help,
Um,
ayudar, correct.
para ayudar.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I need to check your vital signs. Necesito revisar sus signos vitales.
And
And it's
so,
going to go ahead.
yeah, and as you go through these, so
Mhm.
some of the things to think about is signos vitales. Sometimes even just that statement will get them to understand,
Yes.
okay, right? Like that's why they're grabbing my arm and they're
Hmm.
putting this cuff on.
Exactly.
Correct. Same thing
Right.
as ayudar, help.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and I think those are some things to kind of build on based off
Hmm.
what we were talking about before and what you're saying now is find those, kind of core statements, make sure you
Hmm.
stick to them, know them well,
That's
and
right.
then think about the other ways to do them, right? So
Absolutely. Yes.
ayudar is help,
Hmm.
signos vitales
Hmm.
is vital
Vital
signs,
signs.
okay,
Hmm.
and then going on, it's going to be okay. I'll leave it to you there is to keep going on.
Yeah. Todo va a estar bien. That's a little hard to shrink that phrase to less words, but todo va a estar bien. Everything is going to be fine. But yeah, the rest of these that you can shorten. You can even say nombre. Like you're saying in the heat of the moment, nombre, mi nombre. But yeah, you can definitely just use those key words.
What about even in this situation, just saying bien, like with the inflection of a
Uh huh.
question? Would that
Yes,
um, convey that properly?
it absolutely will. Yeah, they Spanish speakers use the same question inflection that we do, so you can say bien, um, or even just say bien, bien, and that anything like that is going they'll understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might
And
be an easier entry point for folks, like as they're building, like you said, like learn certain keywords and then the phrasing that goes with it.
Yes. Right. Right. Absolutely.
so then as we go on our conversation, this is where we can get a little more detail. So we
Hmm.
start with our basics, we're building this rapport. I think the other thing that you guys both point on, which we all have a tendency to do if we don't think someone's understanding us, is we yell, right? We
Right.
get louder,
Yes.
which is not the thing necessarily to do.
Not going to
So
help.
not going to help. So I think we always have to do a kind of a self check too. Okay, take a deep breath,
Hmm.
try to relax yourself because that'll help relax your patient.
Hmm.
Um, and then it goes into breathing. So
Yeah.
on this one, what do you see are the key things to remember here?
The biggest thing I would say, dolor. I mean, because like I say, I'm not a first responder, but that they're going to have some kind of pain somewhere, most likely.
Mhm.
And so dolor is pain. You can like she said, you can say dolor with that question inflection, and they'll know you're asking them if they have pain. Dolor de pecho or en el pecho, pain in the chest is super important. I know. And then we can just apply that same word, dolor de cabeza, just change it to pain of head. So we can say dolor de and change it to any body part, and they're going to understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Um, but nausea is nauseas, and
Nauseous.
nauseas, and vomiting, the gerund active vomiting is vomito. Bleeding if they're able to answer that, is sangrando, if they know of some bleeding that they should be telling you about. Broken bones, if you studied Spanish, you might know that the past participle broken is roto, but typically when we're talking about a broken bone, they'll say quebrado, and a bone is hueso, so they say hueso quebrado.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if you're talking about medications, medicamentos, I know I've been asked a million times, do you have any kind of allergies to medications?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's allergic reactions, reacción alérgica.
So if we wanted to ask, are you allergic to any medications?
Mm-hmm.
Reacción alérgica medicamentos?
De medicamentos.
Medicamentos? De medicamentos.
Uh-huh.
So do you have any allergies to medications then in that case? Okay.
Right.
And,
you can put those together. They'll know what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we have to do IVs, that's something that they probably would see the IV, but of course it's great to just say, right, what?
Yeah, via intravenosa. Via intravenosa.
And here, let me stop you. If they see a needle, because and so right now there's medics and EMTs going, well, it's not a needle, it's a we call it something different, of course, but little poke here, or what's the best way to kind of say, hey, we're just checking. This might be like, if we're checking blood sugar or if we're doing an IV, what's one way to kind of brace them to say, hey, this is just a little poke.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, I've heard people say una inyección.
Inyección. Okay.
Inyección. That's an injection, but you can put the word breve, brief, soft on there, and you can try your best to make it sound like it's not a big deal. But
yeah,
that's probably the most common word I've heard is inyección.
Okay. Just to tell them, hey, brace yourself a little bit here. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could say no va a dolerte. It's not going to hurt you. No va a dolerte.
Okay.
That'd be one way to tell them.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need when you need it at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, and Aaron, you just mentioned, they'll see the IV bag or they'll see the needle, things like that. But I think one thing that's important to underscore here is even just trying, showing the effort to say the word can be such a huge connection and builder between the provider and the patient, because just pointing to things might create a sense of anxiety. They don't know, they won't be able to talk to me in that patient's mind. So even if they can see the IV, even just making that little effort to try and learn some of the keywords, I think can go a long way in calming a patient.
Yeah.
And then going on to that too, like we're making this effort, we're trying to find out information, we're trying to build this rapport. As Janelle was saying, I think that that's all part of it, is just, hey, we're giving this effort. But then if we need to find out more history, if this has happened before, what's the best way to try to get to that side of their medical condition, the history side?
Yeah. So if you were going to say just a general history of surgeries or sicknesses, you could say historia de cirugías o enfermedades.
Okay. Enfermedades meaning sicknesses or illnesses.
Yes.
In this case, right? Okay.
So yeah, you could ask that. And I know that's That's a big phrase. And you could shorten that by just saying historia de cirugías or historia de enfermedades. You could choose one or the other if it was applicable to the situation to shorten it up.
And I think a lot of times you say enfermedades, they would kind of go, they would know, again, it's that key kind of
Mhm.
connection there and term that they would maybe go, see, and then you could say cuantos, not años, cuantos, how many times?
¿Cuántas veces?
Cuantas veces. So how many
Right.
times has this happened before?
Mhm.
See, but you knew what I was saying. See, we're working here. That's
That's
the
it.
key is when you say cuantas or cuantas veces, they would say, yeah, see,
Mhm.
they would know kind of what you're talking about. So we're at least continuing to establish this rapport.
Right.
All right, going on to our keywords there. I keep interrupting you.
No, no problem, no problem. So yeah, once we get into giving people directions to do an exam or whatever, so lift your arm or your leg, levante su brazo or su pierna. So this is an example of what we were talking about before. This phrase is actually written in a more respectful way because it's using su and it's using levante instead of levanta. So that's just one small example, but levante su brazo or levante su pierna.
And
Don't
just
be,
formal and informal. That's what we were
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
before.
So
Okay.
if I were going to make it informal, I would say levanta tu brazo,
Russell.
just slight changes. But as we've said, they're going to totally understand what you're saying. This is probably very important. Don't be afraid. We can't say don't be afraid. We have to say don't have fear. So no tengas miedo.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
going into that too, I think we maybe didn't state that like adjectives are secondary, right? Instead of the red blood, it's blood red,
Blood
correct?
red. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
exactly.
Right. And so that's kind of the thing we also have to remember when we're trying to talk and communicate is it's Roja is secondary as opposed to
Mm,
how we speak in English, right? And that's kind of
that's right.
why we're moving these things around a little bit. But
That's right.
um,
Yeah.
that's one of the two things I remembered when I my 3 years of high school Spanish.
That's
So
two things, man. That's
yep,
good.
I'm two things better, or I don't even know how you even say that, but I'm trying here, right?
There
Like
you go. That's
this is
awesome.
helping a
Good
ton.
deal. Yeah. So you want to tell somebody to lie down, acuéstate, and sit up or sit down, should say, siéntate.
That's
And
what that's what Mrs. Shahoni used to say to me all the time. Siéntate.
yeah, yeah,
He's sleeping. So I knew that one.
yeah. Stay calm. Maintain calm is what we're saying. Mantén la calma. Keep still. Quédate quieto. And if you're talking to a female there, we have to change the adjectives to match females. So you'd say quédate quieta instead.
Quieta.
Quieta, right. So breathe slowly. Respira lentamente. And roll over is date la vuelta. It's an interesting
So
phrase. Give yourself the turn.
and so what happened on my going back to the scenario that kind of prompted all this is that they were having some like an anxiety related breathing
Mhm.
issue. And so they're just, the stay calm,
Mhm.
maintain la calma, and
Yeah.
then deep breath. So how would you say stay calm,
Mhm.
take a couple deep breaths, or how would you put that all together?
Yeah. So mantén la calma, respira profundamente. Profundamente. So breathe profoundly. Respira profundamente.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just take deep, deliberate breaths,
Mhm.
profundamente. Okay.
Right, right.
And again, that's something that I think is one that I would put to the top of my list just to try to get, obviously if they're anxious and they're breathing easy or breathing heavy, right? Just
Yes.
having them calm down. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Danny, only some of these terms or directions need to have a change from male to female. Is that correct?
Well, if we're saying an adjective that describes the person who you're talking to, that's when we need to think about that. So, for example, if I'm saying don't be afraid, a while ago we said no tengas miedo. Well, fear is fear. So that's always going to be the same way. Our nouns are nouns, they are what they are. But when we said keep still, that still would be applying to the person we're talking to. So that's where we have to really make those changes. So quieto, if I'm talking to a guy, or inquieta, if I'm talking to a female.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
For the most part, if it's an urgent situation, you say the wrong form of it, right? Like, I think you're okay yet, correct?
You're okay. I mean, these people know that this is not your native language. And the same as when we have somebody trying to speak English to us and they're struggling, they understand. So they're going to be completely understanding of the situation, and they'll know what you're talking about and won't be offended. So another phrase or two here, use medication, usa el medicamento, and avoid eating or drinking. Evita comer would be avoid eating, and evita beber would be avoid drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and I think the biggest one there is respira profundamente.
Right.
Respira profundamente. Now, is that respiro profundamente if it's male?
No, because that's a verb. So we're not going to change verbs for gender. Put an O at the end, it would be I breathe deeply. It would change it to I breathe. Yeah. So the ending of the verb kind of talks about who's doing that verb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And all these will be, Janelle, we'll have access to these directions or in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll include a list or a downloadable PDF.
Okay. And I'm trying to get Dr. Danny for all of you. You could comment below if you want more from Dr. Danny and more of an actual precise course. I'm trying to talk him into it behind the scenes. So if we can get enough people voting that they would be willing to continue, he's so good. And of course, he's got a ton of YouTube channels and a ton of YouTube posts. But I'm trying to keep him for our first responder lessons too. So I had to put that plug in there, Doc. Sorry.
No, that's great. Hey, anything I can do to help first responders, I want to take the time. I believe in what you do, and I appreciate what you all do and the time you give. So
we talked a little bit about where's the pain or where's the hurt, and we'll have you continue there.
Yeah. Donde te duele? Where does it hurt you? Is what we're saying. Donde te duele? And are you okay? Is simple. You probably heard this phrase. ¿Estás bien? You hear people say, ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Or ¿Estás bien? Are you okay? Now, can you tell me what happened? ¿Puedes decirme qué pasó? Now, we do have a note here. I was speaking with my colleague on our YouTube channel. She's Robin. So if you've watched my channel, she teaches English to Spanish speakers. We have a lot of dialogue about some of the way phrases come out. And a lot of times, decirme means tell me. But a lot of times when you're asking somebody to tell you something that happened, like recount a story, we might say contarme. So we may say, ¿Puedes contarme lo que pasó? And that gives a little bit deeper implication of tell me the story that happened.
Okay.
So, yeah. And one final one here. Is there someone you want us to call? This is a little bit long, but you can practice it. You can get it. ¿Hay alguien que quieres que llamemos? ¿Hay alguien que quieres que llamemos? Yeah, that's one you'll need to run it a few times.
And so I know that Google Translator and there's some apps that are translation apps. I think this is a good time to kind of talk about what are some of the things that we need to just be careful of if we're using that, or some do's or don'ts that you've seen over the years.
Yeah, using translation programs, they don't always know context. So sometimes they're going to translate things literally, despite the number of times people have tried to tweak it to understand context. It's not always going to be 100% correct. So you may not get exactly what you want to say all the time. Sometimes it's good to Google phrases. How do I say, whatever, sit down in Spanish? And you get a lot of native speaker input in various websites, and you'll see the various ways and why certain things don't work on translation programs. So sometimes you might want to start with a Google Translate or some other translation program, but also Google it just to see what other people have to say about it.
Okay. Yeah. So without the translate, just do the old simple search
That's
that
right.
we used to do, right?
That's
Before
right.
you go back to that translator. Okay.
Yeah,
Good point.
absolutely. Yeah.
So then the keywords, I think, and that's what you're saying too, is maybe Google will help with some of these keywords. And we had focused on, hey, at least in a lot of these statements, getting some of those keywords down and then leading to the verbiage around them is kind of a great way to great place to start.
Right.
So we got a kind of a summary page here for these keywords. If you want to go through these, I think this is kind of a great summary of what we've just talked about.
Sure. Yeah. So we've talked about pain. The noun is dolor, and breathing, respiración. That's the noun form, active breathing. Heart, this is very important. Very, very important. Corazón. Corazón. You'll also hear that in almost every song written in Spanish in the world. They all say corazón. Right, but so I listen to it all the time. Blood pressure, presión arterial. And allergic is alérgico. And again, if we're talking about a female, it's alérgica. Medications in general is medicamentos. You may also hear some people use the word almost like English, medicina.
Medicina.
Yes, you may hear medicina. An injury is lesión. A burn is quemadura. Bleeding is sangrando. But now, if you're saying I am bleeding, somebody is bleeding, I'm bleeding, you're bleeding, we're going to say sangrando with another word like estoy sangrando, I am bleeding. People may also say tengo sangre en, I have blood in, and then they're going to specify where that is.
Okay.
Fainting is desmayo. Seizure, convulsión. And we talked a little bit about nausea and vomiting, náuseas y vómito. We mentioned those before. Asthma, it's really easy to remember.
That's an easy one. Got that one. Allergy, I got that one too, I think.
Yeah. Allergy is very close as well. Alergia, and fracture is also close. Fractura. Now, high blood pressure and low blood pressure, if we can just remember that word we mentioned a while ago, is presión, pressure, and alta is high and baja is low. So presión alta, presión baja. The word for arrest or a stoppage, stopping, I guess is the word, is paro. So cardiac arrest would be paro cardíaco. And you see that if you're looking at this right now, you're watching the visual part of this, and you see accents on letters, that means we're going to give them special treatment and say them a little stronger than the other ones. So presión and in pressure and cardiac, cardíaco. So that's all that means, is we just have to give it a little bit more strength. Respiratory arrest, paro respiratorio. Drunk or intoxicated is intoxicación.
Poison. Or cerveza, see?
Yes.
Tequila, cerveza.
Tanta cerveza, sí.
See?
Tequila.
Janelle, you know those words, right? See? Yeah. Intoxicación.
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 Yeah.
How do you say, Aaron, stop drinking so much tequila?
No,
doesn't exist.
Oh, you don't want to say it? Okay.
Yeah, you could say it. Yeah.
Yeah. The word for poison it takes a little bit of practice. Envenenado.
Envenenado.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. How does it say, Aaron, stop drinking my tequila? How do you,
Oh,
bebo, right? Is the drink?
yes.
Beber? See?
Beber is to drink. No bebe mi tequila.
All right.
Yeah, there you
At
go.
least my crew is now going to be like, Zam, no baby, me tequila.
There you go.
There we got it. Yeah. Stop drinking my tequila.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, because you moved from stop drinking so much tequila to poison. So I was like, well, same thing, sometimes, but
Oh
yeah.
yeah. That's true.
We got to throw these practical statements in there
Mhm.
as well as the EMS, because that's what we're going to remember as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we talked a while ago, head is cabeza, chest, pecho, stomach, estómago, arm is brazo, and leg is pierna.
Good. This
Yeah.
is great stuff, because this just gives you just enough. But like you said, it comes down to continually learning and using these then as we go. And so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Actually, we normally do what's called a hot seat, where we ask you some personal questions and
Mhm.
we kind of dig a little bit deeper in the topics that we learned. But I think
Okay.
a great thing to do, I'm going to throw you on the spot, is if you come up with a couple of statements, and Janelle and I are in the hot seat, we got to figure out what you're saying. So based off of what we had, whether it's a fire
Mhm.
or it's an EMS scenario, we'll give you carte blanche to say, hey, here's statement number one.
Mhm.
And Janelle and I, using the keywords and the things that you taught us, see if we can come up with what you're saying.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I approach you and ¿tienes dolor de pecho?
Pain in my pecho. Is that leg?
Leg starts with P also.
Pain in my de pecho. So dolor is pain. So we got that one.
Uh-huh.
Janelle, help me out with that. Pecho.
Chest pain.
Pecho.
Yes.
Yes. Oh yeah. You just went through it. Yeah. Pain in my chest. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. See, we're good. We're getting good at this. Pain in my chest. Okay.
There you go. Okay. So here I'm going to change what I said earlier just to give you a little bit more of a close relationship to English. ¿Están todas las personas fuera de la casa?
Are all the people out of the house?
Right.
Están. Are all the people out of the
Nice.
house?
Yeah. I changed it to personas because you might recognize person. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And you know what? That's the part that clicked. Okay, personas. Speaking of, and then total are all the people out of
Mhm.
casa house. So
Very good. Very
nice.
good. Yeah. You're doing great.
See, you're good. You got two. You got we'll do 5 total so far. I think we're 2 for 2. I think.
Okay. ¿Estás respirando bien?
Can you
Did you-
breathe okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Are you breathing well? Yes. Uh-huh. Okay. ¿Dónde está el fuego?
Where's the fire?
Where's the fire?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'll give you one more. ¿Hay mascotas en la casa?
Are there any pets in the house?
Yes. Like mascots. It's easy to remember. Mascotas.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
There you
good
go.
tip.
This is perfect. I want to keep going because I feel like I'm learning, like I'm actually be able to apply this stuff. So this is so helpful. Thank you again for your time. Is
Pleasure.
there anything else that you'd want to add as far as maybe next steps for some? You kind of addressed that, and I guess the other part is it can be discouraging. Janelle and I were kind of talking about our frustration sometimes, and you so eloquently just said, hey, it takes time, it takes
Yeah.
practice. But what else can you give us as far as lasting advice and little nuggets that'll keep us pursuing this?
Yeah. Two things. I am not one of these people who believes you're too old to do something, or it's just not my I don't have a knack for it. It's just not my thing. I'm not one of those people. I believe that anybody who sets his or her mind to doing something can achieve it and achieve it well. So even if you don't think you're a language person, give yourself time. Start with the very basic, if it's 2 or 3 phrases, Give yourself a lot of practice time. Go as slowly as you need to, and you can do this. Now, I know the other thing I want to say is a lot of people say, well, I see these phrases, but I don't know how to say these things. And I'm not here to promo my YouTube channel, but I did early on on the Language Tutor. I did a video. I think the first one I did was on the alphabet and how to spell and pronounce Spanish. Spanish is not like French. Janelle, I know you said you took French. French, we have to change our muscle structure. We got to do glottal things back here. We have to change the path of our air back here for the R's and things like that. Spanish isn't like that. It's very much a front of the mouth language where if we just adjust our mouths the right way, we can pronounce things very close to what a native speaker would do. And the easiest thing about Spanish is that we have 5 vowels, and all those vowels have one sound each, which is crazy in English. We have all these different sounds. They have one sound each. So if you learn that an A is A, an E is E, an I is E, an O is O, and a U is U, all you have to do is sound out those vowels and you can pronounce anything very closely in Spanish. So give yourself a little time. You can do it.
You can Google it too. You can Google how to pronounce fill in the blank. I do that with English words sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Or as I like to do, I follow your page now, and that's the Language Tutor. And I, again, look for that video. But we couldn't time this any better. Basically, what you said is the essence of what we're trying to do with this podcast is just make everybody a little bit better. Try to do something, every single day, and try to, like in your case, you make a commitment to it, and you're never too old. You're never too old to improve. You're never too old to learn something. And for those of you that have actually been listening to this, please go over and watch this on the Fire Rescue One YouTube page, and then go to the Language Tutor YouTube page. Make sure you follow both of them. You can also see this on Fire Rescue One on the Better Every Shift podcast page. If you have questions that we can relay on to Dr. Danny, please email us at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. If you want some more episodes, learning some more Spanish, please let us know. If you have suggestions for us, if you could rate and review the show, that would be great. And most importantly, and I'm going to have Dr. Danny reiterate this, and which is, basically encompasses everything that you had just stated and why we have you here. Take it from there, Dr. Danny Evans.
Yes, sir. Aprenda algo, haga algo y comparta algo para que usted y quienes lo rodean sean mejores en cada turno.
And just in case you didn't catch all of that, make sure you learn something, do something, and share something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.